No doubt in my mind that if you own a business, there's a level of stress that you've gone through, some more than others. And if you're thinking about starting a business and you think that it's going to be easy or there's not going to be stress, you're in for a rude awakening.
You're listening to the Dare to Be Different podcast, a podcast for people who want to live an extraordinary life. On this week's episode, Joe is interviewed by Jim Lesko, host of the Lesko Talks Windows podcast. Enjoy.
Well, hello, Jim. Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with us today in the Flex Screen Reflex Brand studio.
Hey, this is pretty cool. Thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I think my listeners are going to really appreciate this and the story that you have to tell and the success that you've had with your product.
Well, thank you. And you know, we're also going to put this out on our podcast, the Dare to Be Different podcast. And so, man, this is going to be great. I'm really excited to see how the two different industries kind of combine. You know, we don't necessarily specialize in the window industry, but you do.
Right. And hey, well, Flex Screen is part of window, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But Dare to Be Different also, there's a lot of difference there. So
there is. And we, we pick that, number one, because again, from the marketing side, our product is different. Mm-hmm. We're all about differentiation in the marketplace. Sure. But we want to talk about having a different type of life. Mm-hmm. And we base our podcast off of 5 key values that my wife and I kind of came up with over the last couple years. And they're adventurous, honest, passionate, healthy, and grateful. And we run our business that way. We run our lives that way. We raise our kids that way. So they're really near and dear to us.
Sure.
So, and I have a feeling during this conversation, some of those things will come out.
I had a chance to listen to your first podcast that you had with your wife. It was great. I mean,
thank you.
I hung on to it. I listen to podcasts in the gym. I listen to podcasts while I'm driving, everywhere, because it's how you learn and you grow. You can learn from everything.
Absolutely. And there's it's amazing because the technology is so advanced now that there's people that you would never hear from that can be an influence in your life that have profound things to say, but they're not famous. I can still have access to them. It's amazing. So, but anyway, thank you so much for coming in and being a part of this. I'm really excited to continue our conversation.
I am too. Well,
because we've done this before.
We have done. As a matter of fact, Joe, we did this in episode 2. I want to say it was about a couple years ago, and you told the story of Flex Screen, how you invented it, the whole developmental process of it, and the company that I was working with at the time, we took it on, and I got to tell you. I remember I was reading a book at the time, Sally Hogshead, and
yes.
It was about marketing, and she said different is better than better, and that was her whole mantra. And she as a matter of fact, she was the youngest copyright. She won an award, and she was the youngest copyright person to ever win this award in the United States. I think it was like 23 or 24 years old, and she worked with some very, very big names doing some successful marketing. And so I remember that when I saw Flex Screen. So I remember taking it to some shows, mm-hmm. and I was the only one with a Flex Screen there, and you would not believe the crowd that I had. I would lead with it. I would go into customers, and I would have a crowd around me almost immediately. And so it made an impression, and it made me different. It made my product different, and I actually increased my sales because of it. So that's important.
Well, thank you. And when you had mentioned, and I went on your podcast several years ago, and you had mentioned that book in a conversation before that, and I've devoured that book, and I've read it 3 or 4 times now, and it has really become a mantra that we talk about a lot. As how do you differentiate in the marketplace? Because the same in the window industry, there's a lot of white rectangles. What differentiates your white rectangle from somebody else's white rectangle, and how do you get that message across? And that becomes so important. So, and for us, luckily, we have a different product. So that's really, that helps for sure.
Well, my listeners can go back and listen to episode 2 and learn about the whole process how you developed it. But why don't you just summarize how that happened?
Yeah. So real quick, I was working working with a company that made window screens. The majority of the window manufacturers don't make their own window screens. They actually buy them out. And I was working for a company that provided that service. but there's inherent problems with the product, which made the company that I was working with look bad. It had nothing to do with them as a company. It was the product was bad. They would get damaged really easily. It was hard to take in and out. There's color, all kind of just. It's a mess. If you're in the window industry, you know how bad screens are.
If you're a homeowner,
yes.
you know how bad screens are.
Absolutely. And so, just being a kind of an adventurous type of person, I started messing around in my garage, just trying to come up with a better, some solutions to the problems that we were having. And when I came out with my bubblegum and duct tape prototype, which I think it's still around somewhere. My guys want me to do like a little documentary and show some of the old stuff, but I took it around to some of the companies, and they're like, wow, if you can figure out how to make this, we're in. And so that was the birth of FlexScreen. Within a couple months of having that prototype, I was able to get some investors together. We started the company. I stopped what I was doing before. I actually went all in on FlexScreen, and within a year, we were setting up the first manufacturing plant. So
wow.
It was a very, very fast.
It's a great story, and if anyone wants to know the details, they can go to the podcast and listen to that. But we're gonna focus today, I thought, on the more of an entrepreneurial theme.
Sure.
On how you moved from the very beginning to where you are right now, and some of the challenges that you had in the beginning. So why don't you share with us, when you first started, what challenges did you have?
The worst thing, and this is window industry specific, but I'm sure other industries are like this, is that it's a very mature industry, and so no one wants to be a leader. And so the slow yes almost shut FlexScreen down. So we would go into companies and they were like, yes, we love this. It's perfect. Talk to us in 6 months. Talk to us in a year. Who else is using it? So it was nobody wanted to be that innovator. They didn't want to be out there. And truthfully, they didn't even want to be fast followers.
If it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
Exactly. And they would go, oh, yes, we have all kind of problems with screens. This is a great solution. But, we're afraid, we're nervous, we've been doing it this way for so many years, whatever, all of those excuses.
Sure.
And so that was really, really tough. The slow yes, like I said, it almost killed us. I want to write a book, How the Slow Yes Almost Killed Us.
How'd you overcome that?
Really, what we did was we became marketers instead of salespeople. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
There's a big differentiation. So salespeople are out just trying to close the sale.
Right.
And that's they're borrowing on their reputations, they're borrowing on their relationships, whatever the case may be.
Relationships are huge in selling.
Right.
But marketing is a little bit different. So what did you do in a way of marketing to get your message out there?
Well, what we found out was that, we had to get to the end user. So we had to get to homeowners, and then we had to get to the window dealers. So the way to do that, for us, especially a company that had, I couldn't go out and do primetime commercials. I just didn't have the budget for it. It was just not, it was impossible.
No Super Bowl, right?
Right. So I dove into digital marketing. I mean, really, I became a student of digital marketing, and we just went all in on that. So, we got a beautiful website, which we've changed. I mean, we've only been in business for 5 years. We've changed our website 4 times in 5 years. I mean, we're just constantly keeping up with the styles, keeping up with the times, and started getting into social media, really just started hammering away at the digital marketing side, because that's what I could afford, and it has paid off in huge dividends.
Sure. So that's where your adventurous comes in, and dare to be different. Yeah. You were adventurous whenever you did.
Yeah, I mean, it was just we had to do something different.
Yeah.
I had to sell to the window manufacturers, because that's the business that we're in. But I had to get the demand. I had to get pull through demand, and so it's paid off. I mean, we have some of the largest window dealers in the country. Window Nation is they're coming on. They're making FlexScreen standard on almost all of their windows. Wall side windows up in Detroit has been a long time customer of ours. We're standard on all of their windows.
And I think I remember you telling me that when they started using FlexScreen, their closure rate increased by 50%.
Yeah, and I don't know the exact numbers, but it was big. Right. It was very, very big, because they would go in and they would talk about the attributes of FlexScreen along with the attributes of their window. But then when somebody else would come in trying to talk about either their window screen or not talking about it,
right,
there's nothing that
well, see, I think FlexScreen, when you first see it captivates your attention, And I think when you're selling something, that's what you want. So when you go in with the same old, you got to do something different to try to captivate that attention so that the person will listen to you.
Right.
And I think that when they saw something different like that, it's like you can't even see the frame. I would go in with the window, and you get a contractor, and they're pretty good because they pride themselves in knowing about a window or the knowing. I would say to them, "You see this? How do you get this screen out? Do you have any idea?" And they would just be so baffled because and when I show them, they go, "Oh, that's so easy," but it's intriguing and it's fascinating.
And we've done we've done homegrown marketing stuff. Can your screen do this? Where I pound our screen with a hammer, and then I tap a regular screen with a hammer and see the difference in damage. Sure. And again, just some fun stuff. Again, that's what's fun about having you've met a lot of my staff. They're all young people. They're a lot of creative people. And they just dream stuff. They're like, "What if we did this? What if we run it over with a fire truck?" I'm like, "All right, get a fire truck here. I don't know, whatever."
Definitely a lot of enthusiasm.
There is a lot of enthusiasm.
So let me ask you, what were some pleasant surprises along the way?
The most pleasant surprise was the feedback from the homeowners. And just people that use our product. Not the window manufacturers, not the window dealers, but the actual people that use our product, and how gracious they are and how excited they are for a new product. I have one story I was showing. I was having lunch with somebody at a Buffalo Wild Wings, and I was talking about this new thing that I was doing, flex screen, and they're like, "Well, can you show it to me?" And I'm like, "I have a little window out in my this is really weird." You know what I mean?
You took it in Buffalo Wild Wings.
I took a little tabletop window into Buffalo Wild Wings. There
wasn't a good football game on there, was
it? And it was like lunchtime in Akron, Ohio, or something like that. It was like so. But I started showing it to him, and I'm not exaggerating. We had almost the entire restaurant coming over around the table asking what it was. And so that has just been incredible. And also joining the ranks of somebody called me an inventor the other day. And I'm like, "No, I'm not an inventor." And they're like, "Well, what are you?" "Yes, you are." And so just that kind of thing, kind of taking a product from a garage, from my head, and actually seeing success with it, it's really surreal. It's humbling, but it's also, like I said, it's just that pleasant surprise that like, wow, I wasn't expecting this.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so we talked a little bit about your challenge in the beginning of the slow yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what was the biggest challenge that you experienced, and how did you overcome it?
So, the biggest challenge that I've personally had was dealing with running a business. I wasn't prepared for that. I'll just be completely honest with you. About 2-3 years ago, I actually got really, really sick, and most of my staff doesn't even know this. But and truthfully, some of my family might be surprised. But I got so sick that I had lost about 50 pounds in a little over 6 weeks. And I had this thing called gastroparesis, where essentially my stomach wouldn't empty. So it was really, really painful to eat. I was down to like a cup of rice that I would eat a day. And that was all that I could eat. And we went for about a month where the doctors thought I had cancer. They just couldn't find it because that's one of the,
Sure.
And so they gave me some medication that it wasn't cancer, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But they gave me some medication that had really bad side effects. So I don't want to take this anymore. And so what it came down to was
this was going on all the time that you were starting this business, right?
Yeah. So this was probably about 2 years in.
Okay.
We're out. We've one manufacturing plant open, and we're out. Trying to sell the
So
product.
you have the challenge of traveling and everything like that, and you're going through this, right?
Right. And on top of it, you can't as a business leader or somebody who's trying to create a business, you can't allow that doubt to creep in that, oh my goodness, maybe Joe's not going to be here soon.
Right.
It's
right.
And it was scary. I mean, they were talking about putting a feeding tube in. We were looking at downsizing our house because like if I got so sick I couldn't work anymore, like what are we going to? I mean, it was bad.
Wow.
So, and what the conclusion was that it was stress, that it was, that I was holding on to the stress so much, and the business was so stressful. And every person who starts a business goes through this. There's no doubt in my mind that if you own a business, there's a level of stress that you've gone through, some
Sure.
more than others. And if you're thinking about starting a business and you think that it's going to be easy or there's not going to be stress, you're in for a rude awakening. So, that was, dealing with the stress of that was really difficult. And,
So how'd you overcome the stress? Okay, so yeah, that stress causes a lot of issues, but
It does.
There are things that people do to help alleviate that stress. What did you do when you found that out, and how did you overcome that?
it was almost a mental switch that I made, and I don't know how it happened, but I got really thankful. And I know that sounds weird, but there was this overwhelming sense of gratitude that, because the business went from being something that I was happy about, it became this burden, right?
Okay.
And so that's where the stress came in. Like, it was, I didn't like the business anymore because it was hurting me,
Wow. So rather than you looking at the negative and the problems and the burden side of it, you turned that around and you looked at being thankful for what had happened.
Exactly.
And where you were.
Yeah. And so I said to myself, and this is a daily thing, I have to say this to every day: who else that gets to invent something in his garage and create a multi-million-dollar business out of it? So yes, there's going to be challenges, 100%, but you have to be thankful through that.
Wow.
You have to have gratitude through that entire process. And I was so afraid of failing that I wasn't enjoying the journey.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's exactly what you're saying. Yep.
So I had to get to the point where I'm like, if this all melts away, if it goes away, man, what a great ride I had. Like, again, there's not many people that get to say that they're doing what I have the opportunity to do.
Mm-hmm.
So who am I to complain about it? Who am I to possibly not like what I'm doing? And when I get to do what I've been dreaming of all this time.
I think that's a great lesson, because I think even daily, when we're stuck in traffic, or the job gets difficult, or there's problems with the kids or something like that. Kevin Elko, who's like one of my favorite people, he's a performance coach. As a matter of fact, Alabama's performance coach. The guy's he's worked with Steelers. He's worked with Alabama. He's Alabama's over the last 10 years. I think he's been Alabama's. He's got like 25 championship rings from different people. But anyway, he talks about being thankful, and he said, think about what if you didn't have what you have today. For example, what if you lost one of your kids? Mm-hmm. And not through death or anything, but what if they got lost and you couldn't find them, and you're frantic, and they were gone for days, and you got them back? You'd be really, really happy. Well, they're here with you now. Why
Right.
aren't you happy? And so kind of like trying to change your thinking and your thought process around so that you are just like what you did, being thankful for everything that you have. And there are times when thankful for everything. Think about the conveniences that we have. Think about the country that we live in. Think about the freedoms that we have. Think about the relationships that we have. You could just go on and on and on. Well, let's not focus on how badly I was treated by that cashier, or
Right.
by the waiter or the server, or the bad experience I had. I think that's a big lesson for all of us to learn.
It is, and not allowing one moment in a day to ruin the entire 24 hours. There's so many things to be thankful for and have gratitude about, but we concentrate on 30 seconds that we didn't like.
Oh, exactly.
And it's a terrible way to live. So to me, that was really the big difference.
And you turned it around.
And it was, and I'm not exaggerating, it was almost immediate.
Wow.
It was like as soon as I got thankful for what I had, it was like I put the weight back on. It was just it was amazing.
So everybody out there having a bad day, just think about what you have to be grateful for. Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. So we talked about the slow yes, and then the major thing that happened with your health. But what challenges do you face today that are different after what, about 5 years?
Mm-hmm. About 5 years.
What are your challenges today?
So, today the difference is, early on I was the doer, right? I was out knocking on doors. I was doing all the traveling. I was the brains behind the operation and also the hands. Now I have to lead a team. So we have multiple we have multiple manufacturing locations. We have more coming up. I have a home office staff that includes some young people, which have to be led different than people our age. Mm-hmm. And so, I spend an awful lot of my time not doing anything, if that makes sense. And it's really tough for me because I like being productive. I like having something in my hands that I did at the end of the day. And I turn around and some days where I turn around, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's 4:00 already. How did this happen? I haven't done my list of things to do, but I've helped my team on 300 things that we've had to accomplish.
Just to interrupt you for a minute here, something that I think about often for salespeople, because we're in sales, and oftentimes we think that as salespeople, if we are not running around, driving somewhere, going into seeing somebody, we almost feel guilty. But if we like maybe stay in the office and do work that maybe like planning, strategizing, thinking that might get us somewhere, and maybe quiet life down so we can think about, I could do this and I can do that, and maybe we need to leave more time for ourselves to do that. And I think Americans are just way too busy doing things rather than doing what you're just talking about.
Yeah, and I have a long-term strategy, so I know that these people that are working for FlexScreen, they are the future of the business. If it all is on my shoulders, we can only get so big.
Right.
So my main job has to be preparing them to go out and do more than I could do myself.
Sure.
Even when to your point, I'm a sales guy. I love sales. I love being in front of the customers. I thrive
it's
on
a performance.
It is. And I do my presentation and everyone's like, wow, this is great. Oh, why didn't somebody invent this years ago? And I'm like, I know, but So doing the things that I love about my job and not being able to do those on a daily basis, that's a big challenge. It's a big switch in your mind.
But it's necessary.
It is.
It really is. So okay, well that's thanks for sharing that about some challenges that you have today, and you have to focus and you have to make sure that you are doing that, or you're not going to grow.
Yeah, and if somebody is a business leader, I 100%. I am a I devour podcasts and devour leadership books because it is so important. That's also a big part of my day. Is just preparing myself to be able to help my team grow and be successful. And so if I don't have enough of that in me, I can't put it in somebody else.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so with all that said, how do you balance family and work and all the demands that your project, the FlexScreen project puts on you? How do you balance that?
So I don't think, I think that work-life balance is actually this misnomer. I don't think there's such a thing, at least not in my life and not in the business leaders and entrepreneurs that I've come across. There's no balance. What we do is we set up work-life boundaries. And that has been something that my wife and I have been working on, not since FlexScreen. This was, I was an aggressive person when I wasn't working for FlexScreen. I was out on the road, 100 and some odd days a year and traveling and all that stuff. So there was never a work-life balance, but we set up boundaries. For example, this is a great one. When we go on vacation, my wife knows that I would be miserable if I didn't get a little bit of work in. Number one, I always have that, what's going on, what's happening, So we set up boundaries. She says, look, you're earlier. I'm up at 5 at least, and my family doesn't, especially on vacation, they're up at 9, 10 o'clock.
Sure.
So I have all of that morning. She's like, do whatever you want that morning. You know what I mean? You want to answer emails, you want to make phone calls, whatever you have to do until everybody's up, everybody's eating breakfast. That is your work time. And then, around lunchtime, it's kind of the same thing. We usually go to the beach and so, around lunchtime, everybody comes back to the beach house and she's like, if you need a couple hours, that's fine. But then once that's done, then you're done for the day. So I get a couple hours. So we set up these boundaries, these kind of guardrails that help us to function. Mm-hmm. Sundays I don't work on Sundays. Mm-hmm. It's, now Saturdays, I'll do whatever, maybe a really, really rare Sunday night, I might have to fly out, but I don't work on Sundays. That's a boundary that we've set. And it's like, hey, look, if somebody needs something on Sunday, I'm not the guy to get it done.
So I'm sure that your relationship with your children and your wife is very important. Do you have scheduled in time for them, or is that something that just happens extemporaneously?
So this is terrible, but we actually have, my wife will schedule put stuff on my schedule.
Okay.
And it's terrible, but she will. She'll actually, we have a family schedule, and she'll invite me to this or that. And that. The other thing about it is my family, the business is not a mistress. You know what I mean? Like they're part of it. If you see some of our marketing stuff, my kids are involved in it. There's a lot of vision casting that happens at home. They're excited about what's happening. They know what's going on. They come and live at this office. They're here all the time.
Sure.
So there is not a separate thing from my family. So it's we kind of do this together. So that's also really, really important.
All right, so they're part of it.
They are.
Yeah, and that way they don't resent it because you brought them into it.
Yeah. My daughter, my youngest daughter, claims that I will be working for her someday at FlexScreen. So she is convinced that we will all be employees. So I tell everyone here to be nice to her. So, but no, they love what we're doing. They wear the FlexScreen gear and stuff
That's
like
pretty
that.
cool.
So it is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, as a successful entrepreneur, which you are, what one or two pieces of advice could you give us about entrepreneurship?
So, I think that to be an entrepreneur, you need three things. You need a dream, which that's usually really, really easy for people. I want to do this. I want to start a oil change business, whatever the dream is. I want to start a screen company. The dream is usually pretty easy, but then you have to have a decision and you have to have discipline, the 3 Ds. And
cool.
Yeah. And so the decision a lot of times is where people get stuck, and I've heard this before, I didn't make this up, but they're like, look, if you want to learn how to fly, right? The decision isn't walking up the steps to the top of the building. It's not walking across the roof. It's not standing on the edge. The decision comes when you actually take that step off and it's fly or die.
Right.
Like that's
right.
it. So the decision is, like I said, that's where a lot of people get stuck, and that's a big thing. I had to go home when I made the decision, with my wife. I had to convince my wife that this crazy thing that I worked on in the garage for 2 years was worth our life savings, our financial security, my time. Like it's a big decision to start a company. This day and age, especially with young people, there seems like there's a lot of people that want to talk about what they want to do.
Yep.
But they don't actually ever do it. And the fact of the matter is, no one cares about what you think you're going to do or what you're talking about doing. You have to do it.
Right.
That's what people care about the results.
You really can add another D to that: dream and decide and discipline. Do.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, like I said, that kind of comes in between decision and discipline. But once you make that, decision, you have to give it everything.
Have you heard the story about the 3 frogs on a lily pad? It's a real short story. There's 3 frogs on a lily pad, and one decided to jump off. How many are left?
I would say 2. It seems obvious, but I feel that there's like
3. He decided, but he didn't do it.
Nice, that's good.
I mean, it's kind of a dumb joke.
No,
but
it fits, though.
It's so often we decide I'm gonna go on a diet. I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna get a new job. I'm gonna do do savings. I'm gonna whatever you're gonna do, and then we wake up the next day and I just don't feel like it. I think if we wait till we feel like something, it's not going to happen. So I like your discipline and doing is kind of like almost together.
Yeah, and the discipline comes, you literally, and again, this is something that I have to do every single morning. You have to decide every single day when you own a business and you're pouring your heart into it, is that you're going to do your best work of your life that day.
Wow.
And if you're not willing to do that, go work for someone else. I don't mean that just to be rude or anything like that, but if you're not willing to give up family time, if you're not willing to give up TV time, et cetera, you might not. Being an entrepreneur might not be what's good for you.
There's a price to pay.
People
see the glory, but they don't see the price. I heard Peyton Manning talk one time. He was an excellent teacher, and he would give presentations. He said, if I give a 15-minute talk, 3 hours goes into that 15-minute talk. And I think that the preparation that goes into what athletes do, what anybody does, we don't see. We just see the glory, and we just want to We just want to think, well, I can do that, but there's a price to pay.
Yeah, either I can do that, or wow, that person got really lucky.
Yeah.
And my goodness, I've heard that. So, like, wow, you really got lucky that you invented that. Really?
Yeah.
Like I wasn't lucky for those couple years where I was banging my head against the wall. It's it takes a lot of hard work.
Sure.
And
so did we get through all the discipline? Yeah, we got through everything. We went through them all.
Yeah.
Okay, so give us a glimpse of some future developments that you see down the road in your journey.
So we do have some
besides your daughter running the business.
Yes, besides my daughter running the business. But we have some new products that we're working on, some screen related products that we're really excited about, and nothing that's going to happen in the next couple months, but we're working on some neat stuff. We have some new plants coming on. I talked about that, and we're looking for those future locations, where we want to be, and so just as a shameless plug, if you're a window manufacturer and you want a flex screen plant right next to your building, let us know, because we're looking for locations right now.
Wow.
And
so how many? Go over the locations real fast that you got right.
Yeah. So we have 4 locations right now. We have Pittsburgh, Detroit, Vermilion, South Dakota, Atlanta, Georgia, and then our first international plant is coming in Toronto.
Wow.
Springtime. So we're looking at a March, April launch there. I think the equipment will get delivered early March, and we should be up and running by April.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and so we want to, like I said, we want to open up 2, maybe 3 in 2020. So we're on a rapid expansion mode.
So if anyone's interested, they should contact you. And what I'll do is I'll put your contact information on my website.
I appreciate it.
Phone numbers. I'll put some videos on there that you have, because I think you got some neat videos, and so people can find out more about Flex Screen. And if they don't have it, if a homeowner happens to listen to this podcast, which a lot of them do, and they want Flex Screen, maybe they can contact you to find out what window company does have Flex Screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so on top of that, we have some potential national attention that can't really talk about right now, but what we're hoping that some things that we've been working on come to light. And so it's a really, really exciting time.
Sure.
That we are, I just love where Flex Screen is at right now.
You can feel it when you walk in the building.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the enthusiasm is just here. You can see it. And it's a great place to be.
I never thought in a million years I could get a bunch of young people excited about window screens. That to me is a blessing. If I'm not thankful for anything else, I'm like, I have so much passion for window screens that it rubs off on these 20 and 30-year-olds.
I think that has a lot to do with it, Joe. I mean, you could come in and be a downer every day, but you are just such an enthusiastic person, and such a forward-looking person, and somebody that just has a lot of passion and gratefulness, and thankfulness, and you're just fun to be around.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you so much again for the opportunity to speak with your audience. It's great. I love what your podcast is doing. Our industry needed you and needed this podcast. So thanks for doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's definitely educational, and that's what it's all about. And it's free to listen for all you out there.
Can you from my listeners, can you tell us what how to find your podcast?
Sure. We're in Apple Music, or it used to be iTunes, but it doesn't no longer exist. Door Window Magazine, DWM Magazine,
and it's Lesko Talks Windows.
Lesko Talks Windows. If you Google Lesko Talks Windows, it'll come up. All the episodes will come up, and Stetcher, Spotify, all the good ones. All the good ones have it. DWM Magazine, I'm a blogger on there with this podcast, so if you go to their internet page, you'll see me there, and you'll see the episodes there that you can also look at. So that's it. And
and for your listeners, if they want to know more about our podcast, you can search for Dare to Be Different on your podcast provider of choice, or you can go to joealtieri.com/podcasts. And it'll take you there as well.
Okay,
so.
And I'll tell you what, I listened to, like I said, the first episode of Dare to Be Different. I was actually in Peoria when I listened to it, and driving over to Decatur. It was about 30 minutes long, 25 minutes long?
Yeah, it was relatively short, but it's all about, like I said, it's all about our our family values, how we, how
Sure.
we.
And your wife did an amazing job. You did okay, but she did an amazing job.
Look, I know I married up. There's no doubt. I tell people that all the time. Like, I'm just along for the ride. So
it was good. The interaction was great. So I would encourage people to listen to that too. So, hey, I guess we're going to have to close the window on this episode. And unless you have anything more to say.
No, thanks again. And thanks to your listeners.
Well, thank you for inviting me into this great place. I'm really enjoying myself.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.